Mr. Kimbrell, please tell us, are you speaking for or against the bill?
I'm speaking for the bill.
Okay. The floor is yours, sir.
I appreciate the opportunity to address this subcommittee, and let me start off by saying this entire conversation has been cast as whether this bill is for or against the LGBT community and whether this is for or against equality with regard to sexual orientation or sexual identity. And I feel that that misses the mark of this debate for most South Carolinians, because this debate is ultimately about the privacy and security of the citizens of this state and the right to private property and decision-making by the business owners of this state. Because the bill as written is protecting ultimately the rights of business owners not to be forced to do something that violates their deeply held religious beliefs or their desired procedure to maintain their own restrooms. Now, as we're having this debate, I find it to be interesting that the University of Toronto, one of the more liberal cities in North America, the University of Toronto adopted a transgender bathroom policy that the administration determined was going to be maintained for every dormitory facility, every public facility on that campus. They have since canceled. In the last week, they canceled the bathroom policy because of numerous instances of voyeurism by men who are not transgendered. So my bigger concern with allowing city and municipal governments, like, frankly, the city of Columbia has already done, the city of Myrtle Beach has flirted with. The bigger concern here is people who are not transgender, not part of the LGBT community. It is the abuse of those city and municipal laws by folks that are just trying to find a loophole. And that's what we saw in Toronto, Canada. Because these two men who engaged in voyeurism at the University of Toronto, they weren't transgender. They were males who were sexually oriented towards being attracted to women. And yet they abused a loophole that was designed for transgender protection to abuse the privacy and the safety of females in those dormitory facilities. So if Toronto is saying this isn't working for us, I think here in South Carolina there's nothing wrong with affirming that this is ultimately about the privacy and security of the citizens of this state. And I spoke on my radio program earlier this week with the sheriff of Spartanburg County, Mr. Chairman, our sheriff in Spartanburg County. Chuck Wright, who said he has deep concerns, especially in light of what happened in Toronto, Canada, about allowing city and municipal governments in this state, like the city of Columbia, like the city of Myrtle Beach, to force businesses to adopt a bathroom policy that's gender neutral and force these business owners in public places to allow men to use the ladies' room and ladies to use the men's room. And he said, we're concerned about what this means with regard to assault. We're concerned about what this means with regard to sexual assault. I believe those are fair points. And a lot of people try and dismiss that and say this is irrelevant. This isn't. There's no statistics to back it up. Well, we don't know in South Carolina what those numbers will be because we haven't had widespread transgender bathroom policies yet in this state. But when I have a sheriff of one of the larger counties in this state saying I'm deeply concerned about stretching our resources, I'm deeply concerned about an increase in crime statistics, I think it at least bears some investigation. And I would encourage the senators present. You've got a colleague in Senator Greg Hembry from Horry County who's a former solicitor, former prosecutor for South Carolina. You got to talk to Senator Hembry and say, what kind of statistics are we talking about here? And what happens if we allow men to use the ladies' room and shower facilities? We've been told over and over this bill deprives people of their rights. I don't believe this bill deprives anybody of any rights. This maintains the status quo with regard to restroom policy in this state. It protects the right of business owners to make a decision on how to use their own facilities. And I believe it protects the privacy and the safety of every citizen of South Carolina. And this entire debate has been blown out of proportion to make it for or against the LGBT position or equality of rights. But at the end of the day, the only people's rights who are going to be violated are the rights of business owners to run their business and people who are at risk of increased risk of assault.
You have a question? Okay, all right, you want to interact? I was just going to let him know his time's expired, but my colleague wants to ask you a question.
Radio hosts go too long. My apologies.
Okay, good. Well, first of all, Mr. Kimbrell, we thank you for being down here. I guess my question, were you able to watch our hearing yesterday, sir?
I saw snippets of it. I was in and out of meetings all day.
Do you think it's right that people that are part of the transgender community that clearly identify with the opposite gender, dress that way, they look they clearly identify as transgender, and if you didn't know any better, you certainly would think somebody who's a transgender male is a male and somebody who's a transgender female is a female. You think it's appropriate for that person to go into the bathroom. I mean, I saw, we had yesterday a lady who was a transgender female, okay? And we had several people. In fact, if you're transgender, would you mind standing up like we did yesterday? Okay, so thank you. So do you think it's appropriate to force them to go into the bathroom opposite of the gender that they identify with? And what's the level of comfort or discomfort? We had a young man from Charleston yesterday who I thought made a beautiful comment. He looked right at Senator Bright, and I think he said, and could have easily been you, okay? Young man, clean cut, dress suit, pocket square. He looked right at my friend from Spartanburg and says, do you really want me going into the bathroom with your daughters? How do you answer that question?
The point that you're making is in effect saying, do I...
No, I just want you to answer that question. Do you really want that gentleman going into the bathroom in the women's room?
I believe that we're taking the...
I mean, he looks just like you.
Using the exception to disprove the rule. Because my point was the larger point of abuse by people who are not transgender of a loophole y'all are willing to allow city municipal governments to create here. So we're using the exception to disprove the rule with all due respect, Senator Laurie.
And with all due respect, I disagree. We have the people in Montreal were charged with voyeurism. We have voyeurism laws. We have peeping Tom laws. We have disorderly conduct laws. We have all these laws in place. You know, Mr. Kimbrell, I appreciate you coming down here, but it's hard for me to believe that this is not a solution searching for a problem that just doesn't.
But Senator, do you not believe that in Toronto, Canada, since you refer to that example, yes, there are peeping Tom laws. Yes, there are voyeuristic laws. Do you not believe, though, that whenever you allow for men to use the ladies' room, that it increases the instance and the propensity of non-transgendered men like those two young men in Toronto to engage in inappropriate behavior? You are giving a license, sir, to this sort of behavior and basically giving legal sanction through city ordinances to behavior by people who are not transgendered.
Mr. Kimbrell, we're going to have to move on, but I think the mayor of Florence, who testified, Mr. Wakula, yesterday said it best, which is our bathrooms are fine. We don't need any help raking them. But thank you for coming down.